all messages on so that I don't miss nothing. Pocket full of shrooms. T-Rex, what's good? It's quiet now. Sturgis is over. Looks like some great riding days with us. Hello from Western South Dakota. That's what's up. Yeah, Sturgis kind of died out. Not gonna lie, it really died out. The prices and just cops, just everything. We'll let some people get in here. How's everybody doing today, man? We got a lot going on, a ton going on. And then my personal life got a ton going on there too. So wild times, absolutely wild times. Get me a drink of this tea first. What's up, Isaac? I see you. So, first I want to just start off by shouting out members of the Hells Angels and the Notorious Few MC in the British Columbia, up in Canada. I saw what you guys did for that little boy. This little boy has some sort of disease, and they rode in on him, the whole pack. Gave him presents, hung out with him all day because he loves motorcycles, stuff like that. Like almost like a Make-A-Wish type of deal, but on their own terms that they did that. So to the Hells Angels in British Columbia, in Canada, kudos to you guys. I saw that shit. And I really wanted to speak on it and say I saw that shit. That was good. That little boy, he was like... And they spent hours too with him. It wasn't just a little bit of time. Like they really spent some time with him. It was dope. It was dope. That's how it should be done, by the way, if you ask me. When it comes to Rain Man, Fresno, Sonoma, Salem, that exactly what I thought would happen and what I talked about is probably going to happen happened. They went yesterday for the hearing. The hearing was postponed because they can't get this confidential human source, this woman. They don't know where she's at all of a sudden. Although they had tabs on her, now they don't. You know, go figure. The prosecutors in a federal case that's about to fall apart can't find the one witness that's going to tear it wide open and make it fall apart. Go figure. Wild work. While that's all going on, though, I'm being told that they're going to keep them in the county holdings, not send them back to the federal penitentiaries, and then bring them back. They're just leaving them where they're at. The next hearing is going to be in September, so next month, and we'll have to see how that goes. I tried to get on Merle's hearing today, of course. They're not letting anybody on to hear anything in this case, at least for now. Hopefully, if they end up getting new trials, hopefully it's opened up on the Zoom so that media can go in and we can listen. But we'll see. What's up, Big J? Up here in Reno, huh? Shout out to Reno. Shout out to the Reno Hells Angels. You know, shout out to the Vagos in Nevada. Shout out to the Mongols in Nevada. All three of you. I got nothing bad to say about any of the three. The Reno Hells Angels are good dudes too. That's what's up. How it should be when clubs do good. Yeah, no one remembers. When they do bad, everybody, you know, no one forgets. That's, I mean, yeah. And I catch myself doing it a lot too. Only reporting on the negative stuff and not enough on the good stuff that I actually see or come across, usually on at least a every couple of day basis, where, you know, how you just gonna sit here and shit on somebody and not give them their flowers when they're actually doing something good? That would be a hater move. And I'm trying to, you know, grow as a man, not be that guy. The real reason I did this whole live today is I've been telling you guys about this ex-prospect out of Wilmington, Nick. And and the feds raided his house yesterday. Well, it gets deeper. Today, he was pulled over and taken into custody and taken for questioning and then released. Now, yesterday when they were in his house, because I've spoken to Nick about it. Yesterday, I asked him, I said, well, what were they looking for when they raided your house? What did they find? What did they take pictures of? He didn't even know if it was state or federal. But then he said that he had a vest, one of them Kevlar type of vest, and an AR mag full of rounds. But they just took pictures of it and left. And that's when I told him, I said, well, that's the feds. That's not the state, right? Because the feds are the ones who, they'll come in, they'll find what they're looking for, take a picture, go secure in a grand jury, basically, have a grand jury hearing, indict you, seal the indictment, arrest you when they want to, type of deal, right? The state, usually when they find something like that in your house, they're going to arrest you right away. And sure enough, today they pull him in for questioning. Now, I was able to talk to him again, and I said, hey, what did they question you about? I'm always going to do my due diligence and ask all the questions that I can. It's kind of what I do. So he told me about a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, I told you that they came to his house and took his wife's computer and his wife's cell phone from work, right? She worked for an insurance company, or works for. Obviously, they found pictures of license plates of rival motorcycle clubs in the area that were sent to her to run, from what Nick's saying, on behest of the Hells Angels Wilmington, right? His words, not mine, but they found those pictures and the names that they were all looking up, or that she was looking up for them, basically, right? And then he said that they were asking him about what cars they were driving around in, what vehicles they own, things like that. The members of Wilmington, I'm talking. And then he was shown pictures of members, and I asked him, basically every picture that the feds had of him at any run, the South Run being the big wealth of the pictures that they were putting in front of him, and asking him, anytime he was speaking to a member or a prospect or anybody, they were asking who that member was. And we're talking members in New York, Ohio, Connecticut, Myrtle Beach, obviously North Carolina, Fayetteville, Wilmington, Charleston. And it's important. It's important to put this out. I've talked to Nick. I said, hey, is it okay if I put this out? Because I don't want to add more stress to, obviously, he's about to go through it to his life. And he said, yeah, blast it all out there, let him know. So, that's what I'm doing right now. What's up, Yo Mama House? I see you, Big Rob Sacto, Damon. Salute to you guys. The big thing is this. The feds are very patient. And what I told Nick, I'll tell you guys, is they're building leverage. Like, we've seen this a million times. What they're doing right now is they're trying to build a case against him to try to leverage him against Wilmington later in what looks like they're building an indictment against Wilmington and Fayetteville, from what I can discern from it. The questions that they were asking him about, they weren't asking about certain charters, just Fayetteville and Wilmington. They're obviously watching his home. They've been in his house 3 times now. They've found enough for him. He's being an ex-felon. They find him with that. in his home and don't arrest him, there's only one reason, right? And Nick's right here in the comments, actually. Nick declined to answer any of their questions and asked for, said, I want an attorney, basically. And he wasn't placed under arrest because the feds never do. And for anybody who has been in a game or in a club or anything for long enough, you understand that. The feds literally, but once they show their cards, they show that they're watching you. They come to your home. They take pictures of things and they leave. It's only a matter of time. I would figure, at least for you, Nick, like I told you when we talked, they'll be coming very soon with whatever arrest warrant or indictment or whatever. That takes a little bit of time to convene a grand jury and then indict somebody. And then, like I said, there are cases where even in Fresno, Sonoma, things like that, where they indicted all of them far before they arrested all of them. They indicted it and sealed that grand jury indictment for months and months before they jumped on it and came in and arrested everybody. And that might be what's happening here too, where the feds are just one by one trying to pick off every member from Wilmington, leverage them maybe against the East Coast, because they were asking about members from out of state, members that not necessarily Nick has anything to do with, just that they saw them standing together and took pictures of them at a run, standing, talking together. So the reason I wanted to bring this out is because obviously it in a way it helps to protect Nick and his family from anybody trying to come in and do anything sly on him, right? And his family, because of everything going on. Now it's out in the open, out in the public, everybody knows. So if anything happens to him, it's like we already know who the prime suspect would be type of deal. But it's also just to tell members of these other charters, hey man, they're on to you guys. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like watch out, watch what you're doing, because, and it's already probably too late, because the feds will not show their faces until they already have a case against everybody that they're looking for. And now they're just trying to add more people to it, would be my best guesstimate from doing this, from going through so many cases and the paperwork and the arrest warrants and looking at all of this. This is kind of, their playbook. So ask French who the boss is up there. Wants to do other stupid stuff instead of, let's see. Damon. Yeah. Hey, Damon does not like Gerund. I'll tell you that much right now. Get at me in the background, Damon. I just saw a picture the other day from them. That's a big charter up there, though. Big charter. And me personally, I don't know, man. For what they are, I gotta respect them. At Damon, yeah, William Berry. Hey, they're getting crazy in the comments. I love it though. Let them go. They're fishing to make a lot more big situations than it is, and roping as many people in as possible. Isaac says, yeah, exactly. I don't think they're, well, obviously, them raiding his house last night was fishing for evidence, right? Well, and as I told Nick, they found what they need to charge you with something and give you time in the feds if they want to, right? But they didn't arrest you. Why? Because they were there looking for the evidence. Now they have to levy the charges against you, and then they're going to take those charges and they'll probably try to drag Nick's wife into it too and try and say, hey, we're going to arrest her too. and try to use that as leverage against Nick to try to get him to flip. And talking to Nick, he says, "No, man, that's never going to happen. I didn't talk to him. They just asked me a bunch of questions, point out a bunch of pictures." He's been pretty upfront, at least when he talks to me, about what they said to him, what they're doing, what they found in his house. He didn't try to, like, or what they found in the computer, the wife's computer. And her phone was a work phone, the one that they took. So it is tracked by her work, right? So anybody who contacted her to try to get her to run names and things like that for the charter is now in danger of being just out in the open when it comes to this Fed indictment that they're obviously putting predicates together for, right? Thomas Peterson. We have to protect God's children from... Oh, wow. Hey, I agree with all of that, but well, most of it. What's up, Cue Ball? I see you, Miranda. Hello. So, I also told Nick he needs to stay off the internet. That's why I'm not doing an interview with him about all of this and letting him do it in his own words. Because, listen, Willie Lop might be okay with trying to put somebody on and them getting indicted off of the questions he asked or things like that. I don't want no parts of that. I don't want to set somebody up by interviewing them to be indicted for what they say if they say the wrong thing, right? So, and I told him, I said, don't go on the internet no more, Nick. Stay off of all of this. There's nothing good will come from you talking about this on the internet. You need to save it for your lawyer, basically, and, shut down, cease talking about it for now. And then I'll put all this out there, which basically is a kill switch almost for any type of danger that would come his way, because now the public is aware also of what's going on, when it comes to Nick in Wilmington. Better tell them you've seen pics, and this is true. Oh, I've seen pics of them raiding the house and all of that. All of that. I've seen pics of the screenshots that they took, the feds took off of the phones, of communications, of Wilmington members getting a hold of Nick, telling him to have his wife run. I've seen all of that, and so have the feds, obviously, because, Nick's smart. At least he has cameras in his home, and it's all on camera. It's all on camera. Also, the feds telling him they didn't, by the way, they didn't take the vest or the mag that they found. They just took pictures of it and left his house. But on the way out, one of the feds told him, you should probably get rid of that. Which is a weird thing to me, but the feds work in a weird way, right? Now, my advice to him was, don't get rid of nothing. Because if the feds are announcing themselves to you, they already got you. So you destroying anything on your phone, destroying your phone, or, iCloud backs all of that stuff up, right? You destroying the vest that they found, or the mag, or getting rid of it, that's just added charges. They've already got you, basically, right? And what they do with you is probably going to end up being up to you, ultimately, and that's what I've told him. Definitely don't get rid of nothing. That's them playing cool to tack on more charges, Isaac says. And it's a fact. That's a fact. That's the insane thing about the feds is you don't know they're there until they're there. And once they're there, they already got you. And they might take a while afterwards because they're just getting things in order. They're watching what you're going to do, who you're going to call, who you're going to talk to, things like that. It's just the game that the feds play. So the big thing really is this all started with they've been able to track down, and at least this is what they've told Nick when they were questioning him, The origin of this is the Sergeant at Arms of Wilmington being mad at Nick for talking shit about him basically on TikTok. And this man that used to hang out with them, I guess, named Santos, Nick started talking about Santos. Santos shot back, and a not so anonymous email gets sent to Nick's wife's work, stating that she was using the insurance company software to run backgrounds on people illegally, basically for the Hells Angels, but they said for her husband. And they left in the email Santos his phone number. But the problem is the email generated from the Sergeant at Arms of Wilmington's email address. And the feds know that because they said something to Nick about it. So that's where this all started. So literally, that's the Sergeant at Arms of Wilmington just brought the federal case down on himself. Like I had talked about, maybe happening is happening, and in a much bigger way. And now what they're doing is they're leveraging, or they're leveraging basically charges against Nick in the hopes that he'll flip on you. But they're there because of that email that was sent, to the wife's work, which is crazy because I don't know, man. I don't know. Feds are going to press the wife. Rattles, MC says, or KC says, yes, 100%. Because let's just be real about it, right? And I told Nick this earlier. They're going to come to you. They're going to say, we found that vest and that mag and you're an ex-felon. And you're going to do 15 years if you don't tell on Wilmington, right? Nick's going to say, yeah, that 15 years probably looks more like 3 if I plead guilty early. And I'm not a member of any club or anything like that. Even though he's probably on gang file and the watch list as a associate or near member of the Hells Angels. The fact is that he's had a falling out with them, right? So he can fight that in court. And that 15-year sentence for those two things is really about 3 to 5, right? So they're going to try to leverage that really 3 to 5 years against Nick and say, do you want to go do 3 to 5 years? What about your kids, your family, blah, 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 all of that. And Nick will probably tell him to go, put an egg in their shoe and beat it, right? But then they'll pull the wife in. They'll say, well, we're going to take her for running that shit on the computer if you don't help us. And that's when it starts to get real. And that's when most people that have turned, this is the point where they do turn. And as I say it on the show, and I said it to Nick earlier, this is the game. The game must be played, right? And this is how they play. This is out of their playbook. This is how they do it. And this is what you should expect. And Nick is steadfast, not going to say a word to him. And the reality is talking to them ain't going to help. It's just going, it's just going to get you put away. Yeah, congrats, you've been validated, cue ball. Listen, validation sucks. It really does. It amps up anytime you're pulled over for anything. It just amps everything up. When they're looking to get warrants to search your house or any of that, they come extra cautious. It's a more tense scene, things like that. But they validated me this morning with pics, Nick said. Well, and here's the thing, and it's like I told Nick also, this isn't the feds following Nick around taking pictures of him at South Run trying to build a case for this, right? This is just the feds. And when I say the feds, it was the ATF and FBI, just so you guys know. When they just take pictures of everybody. Everybody, they're just sitting there in a van, sometimes just out in the open. Sometimes they're probably within the club or within support clubs that are close, or vendors, or that, any guy doing any kind of janitorial work around one of those runs is probably a Fed, that type of deal. And they just found every picture they had with Nick in it from all of these runs, these recent runs that they know Wilmington was at. And then they just started hitting him. Who's this? Who's this? Who's this? Everybody he talked to at these runs, they have pictures of. They pulled him up on, who is this? And like I said, that's where Connecticut comes in, New York, Ohio, all of the North Carolina charters, Myrtle Beach, Fayetteville, Charleston, Wilmington, obviously. And there were questions that were asked to Nick today from them that that led towards the member that recently left, the Secretary of Wilmington, right? Now, nothing was really said in the effect of that man's standing with law enforcement, basically. But they could just be playing Nick, or it could be true. We don't know for a fact yet. We have a man that has come forward that said that he was in a raid in a trap house in Beaufort County like a month or two ago, and that the Secretary of the Hells Angels Wilmington is the person that was on the task force. So, fun times in the kingdom. If you're in Wilmington, if you're, around Wilmington, Fayetteville, obviously, yeah. I don't know. Maybe just sit back, analyze any going-ons that you've had with Wilmington at this point, because they're hot. They're hot as hell. I wouldn't be taking no phone calls from nobody from Wilmington, North Carolina. That's a fact. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's craziness. Well, not me personally, because I'm the media. I'm just trying to get the story, bright story, put stuff out there like this, right? But if you're involved in any kind of way, I would just, I'd turn my ringer off. Let's see. Tiny the Beautiful said it. The Brotherhood is gone. However, the club will be around forever. I believe that too. There's too strong of charters. There are two beasts of men in that club for it to ever just go away. It's obviously on a huge decline right now when it comes to quality. But maybe that comes with the times, because our kids, we raised a generation of fuck shit. Like this stuff that's going on right now in the clubs is going on all over the country. And I don't know. We were all in prison and our kids were being raised by a bunch of women. Our sons were being raised by a bunch of women. And that's really the truth of it. And then you get what generation we have now. But there are some stand-up youngsters. It's just maybe their pops didn't go to prison or something like that, or their grandfather or uncle or something stepped in and raised them, because this newer generation is different. And that don't mean they're not tough. It just means that they'll roll on each other and cry afterwards when things don't go their way or they get arrested. And they'll still, pull out a banger and try and take somebody and send them to the upper room. They've shown that. They're wild about that. It's just afterwards, they just tell on each other, it seems. All right. Some random dude that comments, 519. What do I think about the brand? I don't. It doesn't have a effect on my life one way or the other. Those men are over there doing their own thing. They're in the feds doing their own thing. Obviously, everybody knows about them, but I don't consistently, unless it's brought up in conversation. I don't. They're doing their thing. I do my thing, right? So I don't really have an opinion on them. If you're talking about the brand in the motorcycle club scene, like I've seen some dude started a club claiming to be a brand member and has a shamrock and all kinds of shit, right? Basically branded his club with brand insignia, if you will. Well, it turns out that dude ain't brand at all. That dude just till the wheels fall off, just started a club lying about who he is, and that's probably not a good plan. That's not a good business plan at all. Now there is another club. I'm not going to say who because that's, like I said, their business, but they're in California, that is made up of brand members. And if you're in the scene, you know who they are. If you're not, good luck finding out. But and they're well respected, and they're doing their thing up there too. So that's about where it lays with the brand. I just think it's crazy the amount of influence they have in the prison systems. Okay, so ex-convict, right? Been to prison. They wrote the formula for protecting young, scared white inmates that were being taken advantage of historically. It started in California. It started with the brand, right? Same as Mexican Mafia, DC Blacks, all this, right? Now, it has flown out. Basically, California politics is taking over basically the Southwest, some of the West Coast. Not really. I mean, in Oregon, they kind of, and Washington, again, they're doing their thing up there, but more in like Arizona, Nevada, into Utah, but Utah doesn't really have a huge African population to contend with, especially even in the prison system. They do have it, but it's not nearly the crazy numbers, right? So it all was put together in California by the brand on the roadmap of how to do it, basically, how to protect yourself and people like you in prison from becoming victims. That naturally, them being the ones to lead the way in that, it fell through the federal system the same way when these men were indicted for their actions in that organization, and sent to the feds, and then it just broadened from there. So yeah, the brand are the ones who wrote the book on how to put tips together to protect men. It just is what it is. But they do. They have immense reach and power. That's for sure. Vegas, the biker culture, Easy Frank says. Yeah. Let's see. Does the brand run all white yards? Calvin Mob says no. Well, it depends. No. Not even in the feds, no. Because there are tips that historically have had issues with or do not get along with or have been X'd out basically by the brand, right? And I'm not really going to go into which tips. Me being from Nevada with the Aryan Warriors, we've had our own set of difficulties when it comes to us and the brand and coexisting, things like that. Now that's all kind of water under the bridge, because at the end of the day, a strong car is made up of strong tips, and you can't really just be Xing people out all the time because they're men and they stand on their business, right? They're like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm a grown man. I got my own thing, right? Like Kansas did, basically. So no, not every Fed yard is run by them. Then there's offshoots of the brand. Also, you have to understand that are not sanctioned, right? You have people that have started the AB in multiple states, and really none of them that I know of were ever sanctioned by the actual California brand, now federal brand, you know, and not for nothing, those two factions have had issues. And that all came out in that last court case, right? With Metzger and all them. Where the feds have their strength and their ruling power, basically, but they're all in ADX, where they can't really talk to people, but they probably still do somehow, but, you know. And then you have the state that's saying, hey, we're going to take care of the state how we see fit, the leadership in that area. And that all kind of came out in the last indictment that they were all going through in California. Come on, people, smash that like button. Yeah, definitely. And I see 123 people in here. I'm not going to say what that means, but it means what it means. As a California skin, state brand and federal brand are different, and state convicts don't really give too many F's about the Fed brand. Peanut Gallery says, yeah. So it's split that way a lot too when it comes to all the big tips that are basically the forces in the feds and pretty much the state of California, right? I know the Northerners had the same problem. There's always kind of jostling and moving when it comes to the MA, you know, and the Nuestra Familia, and the brand. So it kind of, listen, it's treacherous. Gang politics on a prison level are treacherous. Then you add in everything at stake with the federal prison level, not just the state. The feds are always going to want their piece of the pie on each one of these states, right? And the states are standing up going, hey, man, look, this is our thing, right? It reasonably, you can see why it causes a problem. Yep. I heard Crusher shout you out yesterday. Yeah, shout out. Listen, Crusher at Rolling with Crusher was a Reading Mongol. He just did an interview last night with Stinky for the Mongols. If y'all didn't watch that, you need to. That was probably one of the best, if not the best, interview that I've seen on just one of the random smaller, including myself, biker channels in a long time. Stinky is, that shit was, it was entertaining. It was a great interview. And there's 2 parts. They're going for a 3rd part here soon, part 3. And so you guys need to go check out part 1 and part 2 on Crusher's channel of the interview he did with Stinky. Stinky is an absolute star. Absolutely, in my book, I look at Stinky and I'm like, that dude knows how to just, man. Look, 3 times last night during his interview with Stinky, I said, hey, because I took like melatonin, all that shit to go to sleep, you know, responsibly. And I'm like about to doze off, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'll see you guys later. I'll watch the rest of this later, right? All 3 times, the conversation kept me watching instead of just going to sleep. Like, they kept me up late with that bullshit last night, Crusher and Stinky, because it was so good. Oh, I'm probably going to go watch it again. Just to watch it over again, because a lot of the times I'm interacting, people say hello to me and stuff in the comments anywhere I go when it comes to YouTube, right? So a lot of times I miss specific moments or things that are said in interviews, so I need to go rewatch it just by myself without the comment section. And what a Crusher. He hit gold right there. That is a hell of an interview. Stinky is hella cool, and that shit was dope. Do you know anyone from the Massachusetts 81, like Western Mass specifically? I mean, I never really talk about who I know in the 81, but I do have connections into, I mean, a very high percentage of the 81 charters. And that's where I'll leave that. And, but I mean, it doesn't, I know a lot of the subject matter that I do is 81 based. But if you want the honest truth, I'm closer with the Mongols than I am the 81. If that's not weird enough for you, that's like Crusher shouting me out last night. You know, Crusher said, because not for nothing, you know, that's a lot of the Reading stuff was coming through what either the Mongols or people closer to the Mongols up in that area, right? I.e. Crusher and the members of the Mongols. Not so much inflammatory stuff. We found that out from other people. But the unity stuff, Queens of Chaos, all of that, right? The fellas. I was basically introduced to the fellas through Breeze and through Crusher and the Mongols, right? So I have a way better relationship with the Mongols than I do the Hells Angels. I just know a lot more of the Hells Angels. So, you know, but Crusher said something cool last night. He says, yeah, we were down in San Diego and Mike Munns pulled me up and was talking about my show, right? So Mike Munns, if you're listening, you are an absolute legend and a stud. And I'm honored that you watch my shit, bro. That's cool as fuck. Mike Munns is, he's one of them hogs, bro. Just a legend. So, and if you know who he is, you know. If you don't, you don't need to. But it kind of blew me back. I was like, what? Mike? That's cool. That's cool. Who else do we got in here? Calvin. My cousins, who are members of Opposite 81 Club, say the biggest problem with the 81 is fighting everyone and themselves. Yeah, Mike Munns is about that action, he says. Indeed, sir. Not to be trifled with whatsoever. Solid as they come. So, to the 81 getting in their own way, basically, or it was brought up last night too. You just got to go watch this interview with Stinky. It was great, and they were interacting with people in the comments to kind of drive that too, which was really good. One of the questions that was asked was the peace between the black and white and the 81, right? And I think I made a comment in there somewhere where they weren't willing to take peace when they were on top. So why would they be afforded peace when they're not any longer? And that I stand by that. If you're not willing to be peaceful when you're leading the way or when you are the top dog in an area, as soon as that area gets snatched from you, you don't deserve the peace. You know, it is what it is. You made them take it the way that they've had to go about taking it, and there shouldn't. Why afford you something that you wouldn't do when the roles were reversed? That's basically my thought process in it. Free Christopher Rayman Rainieri. Absolutely. And today should have been or yesterday should have been just that much closer to him being able to come home. Free Rain Man. Go to justicereigns.com. That's REIGNS Reigns. JusticeReigns.com. It'll tell you everything you need to know about what's going on with. Listen, I know a lot of people, they have their feelings, and a lot of people, even people that I'm close with, Big Rob being one of them, right? Big Rob was Art's friend, Art Carassus, right? And Art is one of the people that they are saying, well, definitely came up missing during all of this. And Art is one that they say met the same fate as Doughboy, allegedly Robbie Huff, and allegedly Chino, right? And allegedly Art Carassus, a longtime member of the Hells Angels, more than 20 years. He was the president of the Nomads. He was from Richmond, like a prestigious member. So people like Big Rob, that was his friend. And so, you know, every time I say, oh, Free Rain Man, or Brian Wentz especially, or John, you know, Big Rob will say to me, what about Art? And it's very true. But Art isn't a part of the case that they were convicted on. They were convicted on Doughboy, and now not only the only witness to really tie everything in to Doughboy is a liar, and they withheld evidence that there's a witness who said Robbie Huff did it and none of them did it. You put those two things together, you take him away, bring her in, it's a totally different scene. And you can't convict somebody doing it this way just because of what is believed to have happened to your friend, right? It's not by all means necessary, not legally. You got to make them do it right. If they're going to convict these men on any of those, they need to do it the right way, and they haven't done it the right way in the beginning when it comes to Doughboy. You know, and because of that, it should be overturned. They cheated. The United States government cheated in that case. They put a known liar who was caught in an attempt to commit a crime against a PG&E electric facility. He was caught trying to blow one of those things out, right? And when he was caught, then he came and he told this big story about all these men, got on the stand and lied about Rain Man, and got Rain Man convicted where he would never go home ever again. And he did it wrong. He lied. So Rain Man was never implicated, or I've never even heard his name whispered in any of these, especially past Doughboy, when it comes to Robbie or Chino or Art, all three allegedly, respectively, being sent to the upper room. Rain Man's name is not involved in all of this. Rain Man should not be in prison right now, and he didn't do any of this. He didn't do anything to get a life sentence. So those are the ones we got to work on, man. Can't do it the wrong way just because you feel some type of way about it. And I use Big Rob as my example because he is my friend. So, and we've had more of these conversations than anybody else, so it comes to my mind. Shout out Big Rob, who is an amazing, amazing dude, and has always guided me in the right way. You know what I'm saying? He's been a good dude to me. He's been a good friend to me. So, the government overreached with Rain Man, and it's going to bite them in the ass. Calvin, yes, absolutely. Just tuned in. What's up, Rick? Good to see you. Dan James says, there a lot a lot. You should probably rewind or go rewatch this afterwards from the beginning and see all the Wilmington stuff is wild when it comes to Nick being brought in for questioning today, them raiding his house last night, everything that's produced, and basically the leverage that it will build for the feds, at least against Nick and his family, and ultimately probably Wilmington. Yeah. You nailed it. They wanted Rain Man bad and did whatever to get him. They did. Rain Man wasn't even in the conversation. When they, Rain Man, Merle Hefferman, they were both added in the superseding indictment. They came almost a year after the first indictment, right? They weren't even involved in the indictment, the original indictment. They were added into it later. So basically they had this indictment. Brian Went, John, Rusty, all of the member, JR, people like that. Agro was in the first indictment, all of this, right? All the men were arrested, charged, and released basically, besides Raymond Folks, who was on federal parole when he was picked up on this new thing, this Doughboy case, or this Troy Conti charge, right? And because he was on parole, they held him the duration of it. We're talking from 2014 is when it happened, and then they were all arrested in, somebody help me here, 2017, I think. And it's 2026 now. So Raymond Folks has been down for 9 years on this alone, right? Fighting this. All the rest were released, and then subsequently they went to trial in 2022, 2023, something like that. So they're all charged in the original indictment. They get JoJo at the PG&E bust, right? JoJo Hardesty. That's how you say that name, by the way, Willie Lop Lop. I was watching your show today. It's Hardesty. If you don't know how to pronounce a man's name, at least try. Don't say, I don't know how to. It's not that hard to pronounce. Anyway, JoJo gets busted and talks to the feds for basically a year. And then the superseding indictment comes, and Merle Hefferman and Christopher Rainieri are added to the superseding indictment as co-conspirators. So without JoJo, Merle wouldn't be in this at all either, because JoJo, I believe, implicated Merle in this, and JoJo has been shown to be a liar. And Merle's involvement in this is actually quite minimal. It's as it can be, I guess, right? From the court documents that I've discerned, is Merle's involvement is showing up, seeing that somebody is gone to the upper room at the clubhouse, maybe rolling them up into something, and calling the whatever Yost funeral home and saying, somebody will be on their way with something, you better be there when they get there. And that's kind of Merle's entire participation in all of this. He wasn't there for any of the real craziness. John wasn't there when it happened. John clearly on GPS was in like Sacramento or something at the time, hours away. I don't know, man. It's crazy. But you guys, the feds took JoJo and they groomed him basically into adding Rain Man into this indictment with the story that, oh yeah, we went and talked to Rain Man, and I don't know what they said because I just worked out in the garage while Brian and Rain Man went inside and talked in Rain Man's office where nobody could hear them talk. And nobody can speak to what was said. JoJo never testified that Brian came out and told him, Rain Man just told me Doughboy's got to go. None of that was ever said. There's not a text message between Rain Man and anybody from California saying, did you do that? Or, you know what I'm saying? None of that. They literally have zero evidence and a admitted purged snitch. And that's how they got Rain Man. It's just crazy. It's nuts. And now the government's going to have to pay for it. Never been MC, but I married a girl I met at an 81 memorial and still can't escape the drama. Bro, listen here. I'm going to say it here, and I don't care what you trifling ass hoes think. Do not, under any circumstances, meet a chick at any club event and take her home and marry her. Don't do it. Don't do it. Those are the chicks that they'll get into the bar fight with you, right? And I mean, look, if you like to be on your toes all the time, get hit by stuff in the house, they turn on you, maybe try to get with your best friends, all types of, yeah, listen, the track record is not there for solidness. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a complete dick. I've met some really good chicks in the scene, but you're asking for trouble. So I can only imagine the stories you have from that. Seems like a lot of Italians are in the 81. Well, if you're in the New York area, there's just simply a lot of Italians. So, or if you're in the Boston area, probably more Irish and Italian members, you know, and so on and so forth. Never ever, Isaac, not once, not never. Listen, when it comes to even Sonny and Sonny's ex-wives and wife, right? Z, Noel, all of them, right? And they're not even bad people in my mind. I got no issue with any of those women. But look at the issues caused because of the women. Man. Yeah, we're divorced. Gave me 7 beautiful kids. You had 7 puppies. I'm not even going to call, that's your baby's mom. I'm not going to call her out of her name anymore. But you had a litter. That is a litter. That is a strong Mormon style family right there. 7 kids, bro. Good for you. Good for you. At least 2 of them got to really show up and be successful in life. And that's good. That's good. You got 1 in 7 shot of having a millionaire for a child. That's good. The good ones are all wearing property of already. Don't take the leftovers. Absolutely. But you can't take the property of either, right? So Crusher was talking about that last night, and it's different in different clubs when it comes to the women. I guess different members in specific clubs too, but there are many older Mongols that I've talked to that have said that they hung out around the Hells Angels first, and we're talking way back in like the 70s. They hung out with the Hells Angels first, but what was going on with the women around the Hells Angels at that time turned them off of it, and they said, nah, man. You know, the Hells Angels would tell them, hey, you can hang out, you can hang around, but, you know, when you leave, just leave your girl type of deal. And they weren't with that business. And then eventually they come across the Mongols and they like their get down a little bit more. It's a little more, I guess, classy. Who would have ever put Mongols and classy in the same sentence? Because growing up, I never thought they were. But I didn't know no better. I hadn't dealt with any Mongols, you know. Now I've dealt with Mongols and their whole get down. Pee-wee needs to write that book also. You know, the Mongols are terrible, terrible guys. The biggest lie ever told. Because these dudes they're solid to me. I don't know. I've never had no issues with them. They've always been good to me. I've always had good interactions with them. They've never come sideways, and just their whole get down, the way that they conduct themselves, a lot of the rules and way that they maneuver, like, with each other around the club is very admirable when it comes to this is how it should be done. Shout out to the fellas, MC. That's how it should be done. Still, got nothing but good to say about fellas, MC. They carry themselves with more respect, especially given the background of the origin of the club involving a woman. Isaac, yes. And, I mean, there are Mongol stories that I've heard about, you know, the pineapple group, basically, of one of the higher ups that is no longer a Mongol, and they were on that pineapple business. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. And I kind of brought that up, and Crusher got a laugh out of it last night, where he said, yeah, Mongols don't do this. I said, well, there is that one that I heard. He was doing it on a big level, him and his girl, but, you know, not my business, I guess. You heard the same story, Isaac says. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But notice I'm not even going to say his name. I have done videos on him before. And other stories I'll say his name. But in that, we'll leave that one to be itself, you know. I like Crusher. He seems like a solid-ass dude, Shabazz says. Yeah, Crusher's cool. Stinky was really a good interview. Really good. And they're doing it the right way. They're not just over here shitting on the club that they left or no longer in. They're not shitting on the members. They still have respect for the club and the members. And they're not out here telling any indictable stories or anything that can get anybody caught up. But it's they're telling good stories, great stories. And Stinky was just, I don't know, it was, he had me captivated for sure. Watching Stinky was cool as shit. I like that dude. I like his stories, his demeanor, his sense of humor, self-deprecation, you know, all of that. Like, the guys, he did really good. That was a great interview. Well, the first two parts of it. Different strokes for different free-loving, swinging folks. Yes, yes. At the end of the day, I'm from Vegas. If you name it and it's not on the hey scale, I've probably been involved in it at one time or another growing up in Vegas. That's kind of Tuesday to us, right? But, you know, so I don't judge anybody when it comes to stuff like that. I was making an observation, I guess, about what I had been told by many, many people, too. Pagan on the show said he only joined them due to... Oh, Russell says, hey, that's how you do it. Finna get cozy. Thank you for sending $20, bro. That really helps. I appreciate that. It's our daughter's birthday. Love you, Annika. All right. Happy birthday. That's cool. That's, I don't know. Having a daughter is different. Having a daughter is a different get down. It'll take the hardest man and turn him into, like, just a pussy. And I'm fine with it. I tell my daughter on a daily basis, you do understand, you're the only person in this world I let talk to me like the way you talk to me, right? She's been telling me what to do. I'm like, yes, ma'am. You know, and go do it. Basically. So having a daughter is different. Shout out to the Green and White, 80 years in the game. Damn. 2026, right? Yeah. Wow. That's a long time. That is a long time. Shout out to all of those old school clubs that have been around a long time too. Shout out to Critter and the Sundowners, SFE, right? That's a club that's been around for a long time. Shout out Booze Fighters. Shout out Po Bobs, Galloping Goose, El Forasteros, you know, and it goes on and on. Brother Speed. Shout out Free Souls that just, they're at like 50 some odd years now, I think. Gypsy Joker, right? There's some super solid ones. The Booze Fighters, everybody I've ever talked to about the Booze Fighters, because I've hung out with the Booze Fighters before, that club is like, they're dope as shit, bro. They're cool as fuck. I can't lie. I had a good time sitting, talking, hanging out with them. Always had a good time. They're bikers by every metric of it, and shout out to them. Now, they're not immune to having issues either. Like, there's an issue that just went down in Tennessee with them, and basically it happens, right? It happens. I think the Tennessee chapter went to war with National, basically, and it didn't end well. Now, I have been approached in that, and I just said, hey, give me a little time to be able to call some of the Booze Fighters that I've made contact with it along the way, and talk to them about it, right? Before I just jump out there in the middle of their business, because not for nothing, I've never met any of the Booze Fighters in Tennessee. I think it was Eastern Tennessee, so I didn't know any of them. I just know other Booze Fighters. So what happened to the Misfits Club? What happened to a bunch of clubs? Look, they usually get absorbed into a bigger club because they want to open up a charter in an area that they're not in, or they see that their get down is premier and they want them to become a part of the team. Those are basically the two reasons why you see a solid fellas type of club get absorbed and brought in by another club. Inevitably, they never tend to just go to flow into that club, and this is all clubs, not just one. When they absorb these clubs, there are these growing pains, and a lot of it has to do with, well, you just absorbed this club, now you've absorbed all of the problems and the street issues, the beefs, the debts, all of that, right? So you have all of these problems of bringing in this new club, and eventually somebody stands up and says, hey, forget that, blah, blah, blah. Even though we're so-and-so club now, you know, they're not going to tell us what to do, and they get booted out, and then one by one they kind of get picked off, and either it shuts down and their old patch from their old club is gone forever, right? Dirty dozen. Or maybe one or two of them end up making it, you know. It just, it doesn't seem to end very well. The only two clubs I see that have come together and really coexist very well together, Galloping Goose, El Forasteros. And I'm not talking about support clubs either. Support clubs are a completely different thing, and they should be in their own, basically in their own section when it comes to discussions like this. Because A support club is a club that is purposefully put together to be the AAA ball team, basically, for the bigger clubs, to weed out the bullshit, to get people experience in how things are done, how they are expected to act, things like that. It's and I'm not going to call them the amateurs by any means, because they're the ones out there really putting in the work, if you ask me. Red Devils, Sons of Hell, clubs like that are always being brought into these indictments in Fayetteville, in California, all of these, and in Bakersfield. I mean, look, they're the ones putting in a lot of the work, and they do it because they want to get patched into the Hells Angels eventually, right? That is what they're after. So they don't really count towards it. I'm talking about established clubs in the scene already that get absorbed, Hell's Henchmen and shit like that. A Dirty Dozen. Look at what happened with all of them. None of it ended well for any of them that did that. The Popeyes in Canada are the only ones that I can really think of that patched over, became prospects. Doc was their sponsor. They spent, however, I think it was much longer than a year. It's not like they just prospected for a year under Doc. I think it was many years. And then they opened up Quebec. And they're still a charter in the Hells Angels, and one of the strongest charters. Although they got their own crazy issues going on right now with their VP going missing and things like that. But that's kind of, you got to factor that into the danger of putting yourself in that situation. Shout out to all the double decade members, true OGs. No, that's a huge fact. And it just seems like there aren't many left. It's a bunch of 5 to 8 year members that seem to be taking the helm, and one by one picking off these 40 and 50 year members, taking control of at least their chapters, charters, or areas, and smutting up these legends, kicking them out, and then it just turns to hell. It just goes to hell, right? Look at Highlands, 81. How many good solid brothers do you have to be a part of backdooring for what? For power. Or so you can make patches. And that's bled into Reddington, which bled into Humboldt. This disgusting sludge of brotherhood. But look at Richmond. How many members does Richmond ever lose? Because they're very solid in their selection process. They're very solid in their membership. And very rarely are they losing members. Because they're doing it the correct way. They're not a part of all that bullshit. They're united. Just my opinion. Or both Dago charters for both of the bigs down there. The Mongols and the Hells Angels. But, different time, different story. The brothers in Alaska turned into 81. Yeah, Alaska's different. Alaska's very different. And the Tony Tate stuff and him being a part of opening up Washington and Smiling Rick's influence, I would think, is the biggest influence on Alaska now, at least. Since they just lost the West Coast sergeant and the president of his charter, he just left the club. So even with Alaska, they are from what I understand, really solid, really, really solid dudes. But they're wrought with these little anomalies, and they're always tough. Tony Tate, the one thing they won't take from Tony Tate is he was a tough dude. He just also was working for the feds from the beginning, and nobody saw it. George Christie professes to have seen it from the beginning, not trusting him, all of that, and that's very plausible. But if you really thought that of him, George, why didn't you make more noise about it? If you think somebody is a rat in your club, why wouldn't you stand up, just pull them on it in front of everybody? You pulled up Sonny Barger in the middle of a room at an OM. You can't pull up Tony Tate? Why not? So that's where it kind of is different. And yeah, I don't know. Shout out old Gus. See, this was all because of online bullying. Let's see. Is the pagan blue wave still active? I mean, look at it. The proof is in the pudding with everything that they got going on. And does it make for having members that aren't cut to be in the pagans? Let's put it that way, right? Of course. Of course. And are they just giving away patches? No, not really, but in a way, they're basically they're selling you a membership to show them that you're crazy enough or hardcore enough or badass enough to be a pagan. And most people that pay whatever it is that they pay to try and prospect, open up a charter in different areas, they don't last. The pagans know this. They're still collecting that money on them. And eventually they say, no, you haven't done enough to be a pagan, beat feet. And the actual percentage of men who come in that way through the pagans, because they're still coming in through regular recruiting too, but a very, very, very high percentage, we're talking in the 85 to 90% range of the men that attempt to enter that club by buying their way in through the patch are denied in the end and discarded from that club. So can you blame them? They're selling suckers patches in a dream. And when those suckers show that they don't have what it takes to be a pagan, well, they got those suckers' money in their pocket. And the way that they've set it up is rigged so that most end up being the sucker in that deal. And the club gets paid. So, I don't know. As a business model, to me, it's pretty smart. But also, it leads a way for the feds to put somebody who is tough enough, who can fight good enough, who obviously not going to be scared of anybody because they're undercover. They can act as wild as they want in the streets as long as they don't do anything too bad. And so you have an emboldened, tough federal agent or agents that buy their way in, pass the smell test, pass the background test, especially with all the technology these days. It's just get on a computer, type in this information under this name, this is this person, basically. Unless you're going to high schools and saying, did you go to school with this person? Or checking gravestones or stuff like that, which like the Vagos do that, which is smart. The Mongols, they'll go to your old neighborhood and ask, do you know who this person is? Did he grow up here? What do you think of him? Have you ever heard anything bad? That type of thing. So it does lend to a avenue for the feds to be able to embed themselves into the pagans. Right? Now, what do they have in the way of trying to keep that under control or to fight against that? I don't know. I don't know enough pagans, and I don't know the inner workings of the pagans enough to know. So, yeah. I'm sure there are people that could tell you, though. There's popcorn still out there. Popcorn's a hell of a solid dude from everything I've seen. And he should probably start a channel. Talk about it, you know? The Tasty Few tabs. I haven't heard of those. I appreciate the knowledge passed on the live. Todd, thank you. They want all their patches back. They started it. Girl Scouts. Oh, you know, yeah. When are the Girl Scouts going to start flying 3-piece patches? What happens then, too? What happens then? There's another thing, too. Bikers from Christian clubs are showing up in Michigan. And there have been interactions. None of them are 1% clubs. None of them are the Hells Angels. Because, like I said, that would just be... They're not showing up for that. Now, that's not saying that the Hells Angels in that area, especially like Iron Range and shit, which is Minnesota, but there are strong charters of Hells Angels in that area. But Michigan, call it what it really is. That's highwaymen, and that's outlaw territory. And when I heard that the Hells Angels were descending on Michigan to take care of unrest in the streets, I was just like, no, they're not. Zero chance that's happening. Zero. You got Mongols up there, you got outlaws up there, you got highwaymen, and they're all holding it down on an elite level. So elite that before BA passed, who lived in Michigan, outlaws would still stop by his shop from time to time just to see that he's not backdooring them doing Hells Angels business out of his shop. And that's the truth. Or if somebody was selling support shirts for the Hells Angels in that area, the outlaws were tracking them down to find them. That kind of shit. So if you tell me that a pack of Hells Angels are just going to ride up into that state that is held that well by the outlaws, nah, bro. It ain't happening like that. The feds are the real, yeah, Odin, that's for sure. Lil Joe, Lil Rock, what's up? Your boy Jaron, Iron Range, Hells Angels, yeah. I wouldn't call him my boy. I don't know Jaron like that. I just, from what I've seen, if you're a Hells Angel, a president of the Hells Angels, you got all that weight coming down on you at all times, all that stress, all that pressure, and you get custody through the court of your 2 very young children, under 5, and the court grants you that custody, I automatically have to say to myself, that's somebody that I should just, no matter what, just give a pass to, right? And that's just on a father. I know what it takes to try and take care of a infant when you have somebody there with you helping you. This man did it alone. And because of that reason, I refuse to go after Jaron. That doesn't mean that if something happens in Iron Range or there's some kind of crazy indictment with Jaron, I'm not going to cover it. Of course I am. I'm just saying, if somebody doesn't bring me cold, hard facts, I will not be a part of, like, I'm extra diligent when it comes to Jaron. And it is all based on the type of father that he is. And to me, that is the epitome of what makes a man. And he has done enough in my book when it comes to what I see him being a father, that he will always have a pass on anything stupid or little, or anything that somebody brings to me that isn't really, is just more smut than it is true, or there isn't enough proof to. I'm not just going to willy-nilly throw that man's name out there because he's earned that in my eyes. And that's where I stand with Jaron French. A pass would be appropriate, yeah. And that's just the truth. Now, listen, he has one of the biggest charters in the Hells Angels with Iron Range. He is the president of that charter. So they are always under scrutiny. He's grown. I've watched videos on YouTube of Jaron fighting when he was like young, like 20 maybe, 18, something like that, a kid. Now he's a grown man. He still trains and does all that, right? And he's had UFC, MMA style fights, all of that, right? And he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. So I could see where the feds would try to watch somebody like that, or Iron Range overall, because they're such a big charter with influence in that area. They have heavy influence in their area because they are so large and they're with that business. If that happens, of course I'm going to cover it because it's interesting to me, but not on a personal level. The only personal thing that I bring in when it comes to him is his fathering, and I think he's doing an amazing job at that. And I refuse to be a part of bad-mouthing a man who takes care of his kids the way that Jaron takes care of his. His father and I were best buds. There you go. He's not running the whole state. Quit spreading lies. He has Iron Range. Well, I didn't say he's running the whole state. I said he has the biggest charter in the area, and he runs Iron Range. So, shout out Jaron French, doing the damn thing. For me, I can't see going after somebody like that. And there have been people. There's been this Brandon Backus, the Flames Trotter, tried to get me to go after Jaron. And when that case broke, not for nothing, when the clubhouse, somebody sprayed the clubhouse, the girl did, but she did that on like with the camera looking right at her and right at her vehicle, busted the whole clip at the door or something. And there was somebody on the couch, and in the report, the police report, it does say that person told police that the girl was the one who did it, or called the cops. I think that's what it was, something along those lines. And I'm looking at it, and then there was the case with the ex-prospect and his girl that they were charged with, but then it was later thrown out, right? I mean, this is what I'm saying. When I look up Jaron, and I have all the hearings from all of his old cases, and I have the hosing down of the clubhouse, and I have the case with the prospect and his girl that was thrown out. Sure, a lot of times I will talk about that case on the internet, but because of Jaron being such a good father, that's what being a good person, at least in my eyes. And you don't have to be a good person like church going, giving tithes. I mean, a solid individual. That's what being solid and doing what he did with his kids affords him when it comes to me. Is I didn't talk about that story. I don't talk about the story because to me it got thrown out. I'm not going to smear this man who is doing everything right by his children. the more you know. Other Hells Angels, you don't like what I'm saying? Act like he does, you know? And I don't have any interactions with him. I don't really talk to him or nothing. I just know what people send me. I know what I read. I know what I see. I go on social medias. I see his social media. I see posts from other people. I talk to other people that know him. Things like that. People close to him, shit like that. And I won't be a part of smutting up a good dude. Yeah. Yeah, she got 5 years for hosing down, listen. And that was all over the prospect and his lady who tried to levy charges against Jaron and a couple of other prospects. Jaron was in the car at the time, but they still tried to levy charges against him, saying that the prospects did something to the girl. That was later thrown out, but in the meantime, this girl, who was the best friend of that girl, showed up at their clubhouse and started blasting through the door. And it was all caught on camera, and she was arrested for that. Jaron and the couple of prospects, I think 4 people total, were arrested from Iron Range while they investigated basically what this girl said that they did to her. Now, through that investigation, it was found that none of them did any of that to her, that she was lying about it, and all the charges were dropped against Jaron and the other members or prospects that were arrested in that. So it's a whole crazy case. Show a little love to the channel, Henley209. Thank you. I appreciate that $10 immensely. I appreciate you very much. That's solid. That's why we rock with you. Well, and you know, I'm just, if somebody, say like Damon, comes in and asks why I won't run it, this is why. You know, so many people, they want to jump on every story that they see in the news media. They want to jump on anything. It doesn't, and they don't take into account the men or women or, you know, whoever is involved in the actual story, right? And then they damage somebody's reputation, say jumping on the thing with Iron Range. That would have damaged, I would have been sitting here saying all this about Jaron, and then it comes out it's not true, and then I look like an asshole, and would be rightfully so. But you can't take away the damage that would have been done by that. Would it have been legal for me to do? Absolutely, because it was in the news media. There were police reports generated, and I'm allowed to talk about that stuff. It's freedom of the press. Would it still, would it have been immoral for me to do? Absolutely, and that's why I don't do it. Because I have enough respect for what I do see in him to not do a disservice to him and cause him any issues in his personal life or his daily life. He hasn't done anything to warrant anything like that. It's the opposite. He has earned the right for me not to be the one talking about it. Adrian's ex should say. Yeah. Adrian's old man was a new member. He was going after him. Had nothing to do with the other situation. The more you know is right. Hey, Damon, there you go. See? I mean, and inevitably there's stuff like that too. Like the thing with Big J in New Haven, Connecticut, right? With the Michelinos. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of that story. It was just brought to my attention when I was talking about it that night, like right before. As I dig, I'll learn more about it. I'm sure I'll end up talking to Jay at some point about it. And then I'll have at least, because that's how, and I don't go looking for these people either, right? That's the other important thing. Say with Fresno, Sonoma, Salem, all of this that's been going on. How do I word this? All right, the close friends or family members of every man that was indicted and convicted in that, i.e. John, Rusty, Ray folks, Rain Man, and Brian Went, I have never once gone looking for the story with their family or their friends, right? They have all come to me, and most are very appreciative of the work that I put in for their family member who has been wrongfully convicted in this, right? Other people might go looking and try to get a hold of Jay in New Haven or something like that. I'm not going to do that. But inevitably, there's a high likelihood, Jay, if you're out there, probably get a hold of me. And when he does, then I'll have more on it. And that's how it goes with all of the stories that I cover. I try to at least get a hold of somebody who knows what the hell really happened and not just the media. And I would never just cold call somebody's family member to ask what's going on. That's craziness. Quick question. After watching the movie Wrecking Crew, I'd like to learn more about the Red Rum MC. They're that's the Native American club, is it not? Are they a diamond group? Well, if it's the club I'm thinking of, is this the Native club? If so, I'm not 100% on whether they wear a diamond or not, but I am 100% that they are Diamond Action. Them dudes, yep, I think so. Yeah, those dudes, if they're not wearing a diamond, they need to be, because they're about that diamond action for sure. From what I see, respectably, them dudes are out there. They ain't to be trifled with either. Everything I've seen. There's a lot of those though. There's a lot of clubs that aren't on the national scene that are with the function, just absolutely with the business. What's up, Aiden? Largest indigenous motorcycle club in the world. There you go. Isaac, are they a diamond? They have to be. They absolutely have to be. I've seen different things that have happened that are like, yeah, that's a 1% club for sure. That's some 1% action. The president of Red Rum, I believe, has a video explaining why they removed the diamond. B-Town. Okay, you know what? I'll learn as much as I can for you on it. How about that much? I can give you that. All right, Red Rum. I was just talking about them with somebody else in the background too. Yeah. I hang out with them at powwows yearly. Isaac says, there you go. The more you know. And that's the good thing here too is, if I don't know, I won't bullshit you and act like I know. I'll just be like, I don't know. So, Rick, look at my above comment. Let's see. They have a diamond, but it's not a 1% diamond. It represents something a bit different to them. It's a 13.5 patch. I won't go into what it means to them, but they're solid. There you go. There you have it. And Isaac, listen, Isaac is invaluable to me, to this channel, to information. Not saying Isaac just comes to me all the time with information, but every bit of information Isaac's ever brought to me has been 100% factual. He's never once been wrong. Everything has been on point. His research ability, his connections. Isaac is the man when it comes to this shit. He's really good. That's why you'll always see me asking Isaac. It's crazy. All right, so we're gonna cut it loose. Been doing it for about an hour and a half, a little hour and 40. Thank you for coming to Vegas Profile Stories. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and we'll see you in 2 days. I'm trying to go every other day now. You know, even if there's nothing crazy cracking off, I might just jump on here and do a live. But just look at the title and the thumbnail, and if you don't like bullshitting with me, hey, put an egg in your shoe.